welcome to Bite Size Church.
When the music fades, all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring something that's of worth, that will bless your heart. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I've made it, 'cause it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus.
God is spirit, and his worshippers must worship in the spirit and in truth. Amen.
Hello. Our verse today is about how we worship. It's really hard to describe God. Sometimes it's easier to say what he isn't rather than what he is. By his very nature, we struggle to find the language and the words to adequately talk about his nature. Being spirit helps us to understand how he can be everywhere and everlasting, transcending time and space. It explains why we can't see or draw him, but we can feel his presence. Our verse this morning, John 4:24, comes near the end of a conversation that Jesus had with a Samaritan woman. He met her at the well. This encounter happened at a specific place, Sychar in Samaria. Allegedly, the well is still there, and at a specific time, the 6th hour. Now that was equivalent to noon, the heat of the day. So these details suggest to us that it's a real event. Although the conversation seems to have been witnessed just by the two people involved, Jesus and the woman, the end of the story suggests that the unnamed Samaritan woman told many about what was said, because it says many believed on account of her story. This meeting with Jesus was against the social conventions of the time. She was probably a social outcast, hence she had to draw water at the hottest time of the day when she was least likely to meet other people. She was a woman, and she was a Samaritan. Jesus made the first move in speaking to her against all gender and racial prejudices of his day. Now this compares with a meeting that we can read about in a former chapter of John, with a well-respected religious leader, Nicodemus. Nicodemus had sought Jesus out in the darkness, and he specifically wanted to ask him some theological questions. We don't know what the outcome was of that meeting, but when we look at the conversation, Jesus' tone doesn't seem as sympathetic as he was towards the Samaritan woman. Far from seeking him out, it seems that Jesus sought out the Samaritan woman. He initiated the conversation, and she seems surprised by his interest. She appears to try to divert the subject matter from her personal life to religious issues of how the different communities worship. Jesus uses this to commend her truthfulness, and then he expounds on the importance of sincerity of worship. That's what we'll be looking at. Worshippers need to share something of the attributes of their God. God is spirit, and God is truth. Spiritual doesn't mean airy-fairy or unapproachable. It's essential that worship isn't just ceremonial, habit and ritual. It's not what you do. It's not grounded in where you are or when you do it. As with God, he is everywhere and always. So wherever and whenever is acceptable. What matters is that it's genuine and authentic. This is very liberating. We can use our own words. We don't have to learn specific prayers or come with particular words. We can just use our own words from our heart. We don't need to stand on ceremony. We don't need to be with ordained people. We don't need to have bought into specific programs or wear special stuff or meet on special days. Of course, that doesn't mean that we must throw out liturgies and lectionaries and written prayers and rituals, communions and covenant services. These very often put into words and actions exactly what we feel in our heart and what we wish we had the ability to verbalise for ourselves. As long as we do a little reality check every so often to make sure that we're not just going through the motions. Sometimes it's beneficial to look into the origins of some of the traditions and maybe the symbolism of some of the things we do in order to make our worship more meaningful and sincere. Sometimes we need to consider others and ensure that the words and the actions we use in our community worship are accessible for those who don't have the grounding in the church that we have. Sometimes we can look at how other faith communities do things in order to refresh our own practices and breathe new life into our worship. Recently, I was reading a book by Tom Wright, in which he said idolatry was our greatest sin. By that, he didn't mean worshipping carved images, because he was talking about Christians and saying that sometimes our worship can be idolatrous if we're putting our faith in our action of worship rather than in God, the object of our worship. So, to summarise, God is accessible. God is here now and always. God is open and ready and waiting for you to worship him, however you feel comfortable. All he asks is that it's from your heart. Make it real. Amen.
True God, thank you that you are always here waiting for us to approach you. You don't require us to use long words, wear certain clothes, come at certain times on special days. We don't need to learn prayers or copy saints. All we need is to concentrate on who we are speaking to and focus on your being. We come with hearts full of love and gratitude for all you do for us. Forgive us for the times we say the right words, but our hearts aren't in them. Thank you for understanding when our hearts are so full that we don't have the words to express what we need to say. Accept what we do and say as we worship you in our lives. Amen.
King of endless worth, nothing can express how much you deserve. Though I'm weak and poor, all I have is yours, every single breath. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I've made it, 'cause it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I've made it, 'cause it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus.